All right. So I just hit record because I forgot. So inverse is switching x and y. This is the notation for inverse. If you have a little -1 there, that means that's the inverse of f. If we had two ordered pairs like 2, 3 and 5, 7, if I want the inverse of that, I switch my x and my y. So instead of 2, 3, it becomes 3, 2. Instead of 5, 7, it becomes 7, 5. Same thing if you have a graph. I had two ordered pairs in green. These were my original ordered pairs. 1, 2 became 2, 1. And 3, 4 became 4, 3. So I just switched the ordered pairs. And what's neat with your inverse functions is if you draw this diagonal line across, the equation of this line is the line y equals x if you were to actually do it with the slope. All inverse operations or inverse functions and original functions are reflexive about that line. So if you fold your graph in half there, they're going to meet up. Okay. So this green dot would match with this red one. This green would match with this red one if I could draw a scale. So if it was on a pretty graph. So that is with ordered pairs and graphs. If you see those for your inverses, we just know we're going to switch our x and our y. But most of what we're going to be doing today is figuring it out with functions. So if you have an original function and you want to find the inverse, here are our steps. Our first step is we're going to do what an inverse is, which means to switch our x and our y. So we're going to switch the x and the y in the problem. And once we've done that, then we'll solve for y. So we swap them, and then we get the y by itself. We have to remember that occasionally we'll have problems that say f of x rather than y originally. So I'm going to go ahead and write f of x as y. Those are the same thing, right? F of x and y when you're graphing. Y equals and f of x equals. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So this becomes a little bit more obvious. So these two are the same thing. So y equals -2x minus 4. So now with our problem, we're going to follow our steps, switch our x and our y, and then we're going to get the y by itself. Okay, so where x was becomes y and vice versa. So we're going to do step 1. We're switching them. So x equals -2y minus 4. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Now we're trying to get y by itself. So what are we going to move first, the 2 or the 4? The 4, right? We're trying to get y alone. So we're going to add 4 to both sides first. So x plus 4 equals -2y. Is y almost by itself? Yep, what do we need to do next to get it all the way alone? Divide by -2. And you might see this written in two different ways. I want to make sure that y'all are okay with both of them. So it might just be written like that, where you have y equals x plus 4 all over -2. Or remember, when you divide the whole thing, you can put the -2 underneath each of them. You could also see it written like that. And then you would have to simplify those. So we can go back through these steps. We wrote the f of x as a y just so it's easier for us to see. We swapped our x and our y, and then we got the y by itself. Added 4, then divided by the -2. We could see it written this way or in this form, and either one's okay. Thumbs up if y'all are all right with that problem. Okay, okay, all right, we'll try number 2. This is g of x instead of f of x, same thing. We're going to change it to a y. So y equals negative 8x minus 13 over 9. What's the next thing we want to do if we're finding an inverse? We're going to switch our x and our y, right? So we want to swap places for our x and our y. We'll swap places. So x equals negative 8y minus 13 over 9. I'm going to have to bring this over here. Sorry, out of space. For a problem like this, which number needs to be moved first, the 8, the 13, or the 9? The 9 does, and it's divided by 9, so it's the opposite of divide by 9. Multiply, so we're going to multiply by 9 on both sides. So 9x equals negative 8y minus 13. I bet y'all can finish this no problem without me, but I'll make sure we're all clear. What's going next if we want y by itself? The 8 or the 13? The 13. We're going to add 13 to both sides. These are not like terms, so 9x plus 13 equals negative 8y. And then what gets divided? The negative 8. So y equals 9x plus 13 over negative 8, or negative 9 over 8x minus 13 over 8, because we put the negative 8 underneath both of them. All right, for the next problem, just because I have limited space, I'm not going to write the h as a y. It's like a whole separate thing. I'm just going to scribble it out and put y equals. That'll save y'all a line on your paper too, so you can do that. Okay, go ahead and do the next line. What's your next step when you do an inverse problem? You have to switch your x and your y. So y'all go ahead and write that. Swap your x and y. And this is what you should have. X equals negative 3 plus y minus 1 cubed. Is that what's on your paper? Okay. Now let's see, we're trying to get y by itself. We got this cube. We can't get to that yet until the 3 is gone in the front. So we have a negative 3. How are we going to get rid of this minus 3? We're going to add it. So we'll add 3 to both sides. So x plus 3 is equal to y minus 1 cubed. When this is cubed, I can't get inside of it. I can't get that 1 out of there until I get rid of this third power. How do we get rid of something that's raised to the third power? Do you guys remember from our square root equations? If it was set to the second power, we would take the square root, right? And it gets rid of it. In this case, it's the third power, so we're going to do the cubed root. So we'll do the cubed root of both sides, and that's going to cancel out this 3 for that power. To draw my line again here. So I have the cubed root of x plus 3 is equal to y minus 1. Because a cubed root and a cubed power cancel each other out, just like a square root and a squared. Are we following? You've got thumbs up, thumbs down. right, thumbs up. I'm seeing some thumbs up. Is the y by itself yet? Now, what do we need to do to get the y by itself? What's next to it that needs to go away? The 1. It's a -1, so how do you get rid of a -1? You're going to add 1 to both sides. So it's going to be the cubed root of x plus 3 plus 1 is equal to y for our answer. All right, remember, if you are on your phone or watching TV or doing something else, make sure your focus is here. I will need to see all of these steps, and I need to make sure they are your work and your steps. Some of y'all just started to get real lazy and copy all your homework down, and it's not going to end up very good for you in the end. Okay, on number 4. We are going to just scribble this off, and I'm going to change it to a y so I don't have to rewrite that line again. Is there an x in this problem on number 4? Do you see an x? No, but whatever variable you have, you can just say that that's the x. So I'm just going to write that as x. So you're going to use whatever variable you have. We're going to call it x, since we're talking about switching x and y. Are we ready to solve for y? Well, y is already solved for. What do we need to do first before we start to solve? What's step number 1? We got to switch the x and the y first. Then we'll be ready to solve. So x equals the cubed root of y plus 2 over 2. Can I get to all this stuff on the inside with this cubed root sign on the outside? Nope, I've got to get rid of that. So it's just like we did over here. To get rid of a cube, we did the cubed root. So to get rid of a cubed root, we're going to raise it to the 3rd power. So with roots and powers, you just do the opposite of whatever it was. So here we go. We're going to raise it to the 3rd on both sides. If you haven't done the 6-5, 6-8 assignment yet, I think there's about 15 of you guys that have not done that yet. This is going to make more sense once you've done that assignment and you've practiced solving for things that are in square roots. If you haven't practiced that yet, it's going to be a little bit tricky to do this. All right, so now I've got x cubed equals y plus 2 over 2. Which 2 am I going to get rid of first, the one on the bottom or the top? The bottom one. And it's a divide by 2. So what's the opposite of divide by 2? We're going to multiply by 2. Yep. So draw my arrow again. Sorry, this is a sloppy mess. So 2x cubed equals y plus 2. So I did the 2 over here. And that cancel. Is the y almost alone? What's the only thing left to do to get the y all the way by itself? Subtract the 2. So 2x cubed minus 2 is equal to y, and we're done. So it's a pretty similar process on all of the problems. You are switching the x and the y, then you're getting the x, the y by itself. But if you notice from the problems that we had, like on number 3, I had an x minus 1, I ended up with a plus 1. I had a minus 3, I ended up with a plus 3. I had a 3rd power, I ended up with a cubed root power. So you will have opposite operations in the problem. Like that was a divide by 2, here's a times 2, a plus 2, a minus 2, a root 3, a 3rd power. So do you see how you have those inverse operations in there? It's not always in the same order, but they will exist in the problem. All right, and 5 and 6, you'll have some problems like this. They want you to know if, they want you to say if the two things are inverses of one another. So for us to do that, we just find the inverse of one, and if it matches, then they're good. They're trying to tell you, like on these problems, it's like they're giving you the original one and the inverse and seeing if they actually, that would be the answer to that problem. So you could pick either one you want to do. Which one do you want to find the inverse of on number 5? F or G? Doesn't matter which one. You want to do the first one or the second one? Let's take a vote. Let's see how many ones I have. If you want to do the first one and find the inverse, I got 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, if you want to do the second one and find the inverse, 1, 2. All right, so the ones have it. We're going to do that one. You would end up with the same thing, no matter what. So we are going to find the inverse of this. If we end up with this bottom equation, we know they're inverses. If we don't end up with that bottom equation, they're not inverses. So I'm going to write it. Y equals the cubed root of negative x plus 3. Finding an inverse, what's our very first step? Going to switch our x and our y for our very first step. So x equals the cubed root of negative y plus 3. To get rid of this cubed root, what do I need to do to both sides? What do I need to raise it to? Both sides need to be raised to the third power. Good. All right, and I will be asking you guys to submit these notes as soon as we are finished. So if you have not been paying attention or write anything down, you better get to going. So we have x cubed is equal to negative y plus 3 because the cubed root and the third power, those are going to cancel each other out. Is the y by itself yet? Nope. What do we need to move? The 3. So we're going to subtract 3 on both sides. Is it looking close to the bottom equation? We're getting close to it, kind of. Got x cubed minus 3 is negative y. Is the y alone yet? Nope, we have a negative in the front. How do you get rid of a negative? There are two different ways you can do it. You can either divide by -1 or multiply everything by -1. I like to divide just because I think it's kind of like a 1 in the front. That becomes negative x cubed because that -1 changes that sign. Negative over a negative makes a positive, and then that's going to go away. So our y value is negative x cubed plus 3. Is that what we wanted it to equal? Yep, so are they inverses? Yes, so they are because these two matched. All right, I want you guys to try number 6. See if those are inverses. Start with the top one and see if when you do the inverse, you get the bottom equation. Let's take a poll quickly. Who thinks they're inverses? Just kind of glancing at them on number 6. If you think they're inverses, raise your hand. If you think they're not, raise your hand. Okay, so give it a try. Start out on that one. I'll put the first line on there. So go ahead and find the inverse of this and see if it matches that second equation. Once you have done that, show me your work, please. So hold that up. Good job, Layla. Thank you. Yes, Mackenzie. Yes, Amari. Thank you. If you don't know where to start, the very first thing we do is switch our x and our y. X equals 2y minus 5, and then we're trying to get our y by itself. Yes, Shalia, thank you. Once you've found the inverse of that original one, tell me if it matches the second equation. So say yes or no if they're inverses or not. Thank you, Diamond. That looks good. All right, for our next step, are we going to move the 2 or the 5? The 2 or the 5? Move the 5, so we're going to add 5 to both sides. So x plus 5 equals 2y. The y is almost by itself. How do you get rid of 2 times something? We're going to divide. So we're going to divide by 2. Those 2's will cancel out. So y is x plus 5 over 2. And now I'm going to check and see, does that match that bottom equation? Are these two the same thing? Nope, the numbers don't match at all. So are they inverses? Thumbs up for yes, thumbs down for no. Thumbs down for no, they are not inverses. These two equations do not match. Okay? You could kind of guess that from the beginning. Most of y'all did. You saw a 2 and a 5, and these had 3s and 12s and 4s. So I don't know how you would have gotten from here to that. So you can kind of get an idea at the beginning if you think it's going to be right or not. But always make sure you work it out and check it. Okay. All right, we have one last problem on your notes for today. Then you'll have the rest of the time to work. Oh, raise your hand if you got number 6 correct. You just didn't show me. You worked it out. You got it correct. Good. Our very last one is they want us to find the inverse and then graph both the inverse and the original function. So we have to remember when we're graphing, we want to put things in y equals mx plus b form, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. We remember that? It's going to take us back a couple months. So I'm going to go ahead and write that in this form just so it's easier for me to graph it. So y equals 2/5 x minus 2. Y'all saw that I just rewrote that so that it's in the right form. We can go ahead and graph this one, then we'll do the inverse if you want. So what number are we going to start on for this graph on our y-axis? The y-intercept is the b, so we're going to start at -2 for our starting point. And then our slope tells us to go up how many? 2, and to the right how many? 5. So remember, this is up and to the right So up 2 and to the right 5. And that is our original graph. We're going to do the inverse in a second, and we'll see if they actually go across. You know how we said that line there, we could fold it and they would be reflexive about that line. We'll double check that. Now we're going to find the inverse. This was our original one. What do we need to do first before we start to solve for y? We got to switch it, switch our x and our y. So x equals 2/5 y minus 2. Okay, what do y'all want to do? What do we need to do first? The 2/5 or the 2? The 2. I'm going to have you guys do this in 2 steps just because it makes it easier than trying to multiply by a fraction. We have 2 divided by 5. Can we get rid of that divided by 5 first? How do you get rid of divided by 5? Times 5. So I'm going to multiply by 5 on both sides first. Did you know you could do that with a fraction? Now what do we need to do to get the y by itself? Divide by 2. And I am going to split this up so that it's in mx plus b form. So that's 5 over 2x plus, what's 10 divided by 2? 5. Let's graph it. Where does it start on the y-axis? It starts at 5 and goes up 5 over 2. But I'm going to have to backtrack just because I'm going to go off the graph. So up 5 over 2, I can reverse it, down 5 left 2. If I folded the graph along that diagonal line in the middle that I drew before, would these two match up? Here's my line I would draw down the middle. If I folded my paper on this line, would the graphs match up? Would this green section match with the blue section on both sides? You think about folding it diagonally. Yep, they're inverses of each other, and the ordered pairs also switch. This one is 0, 5. This one is 5, 0. That one is -2, 0. That one is 0, -2. Same thing here, 5, -4, -4, 5. Did you need a little refresher on graphing those lines? It's been a little bit of time. Last number is your y-intercept. That is your slope. Any questions about anything from today?